Hey guys, welcome to week 4, or module 4. So this week we're going to be talking about some CSS more exclusively, but we're also going to go into Photoshop this week. So that's awesome. But before we get started, I want to start off with some file cleanup and introduce you to your 2 new folders for this week. So as you know, when you're building a web page, we use the images folder. But one of the biggest things about building our web page is size. So we want to make sure that the site that we put up on the web is as light um, as possible when it pertains to the file size. One of the things that bogs it down, of course, are images, especially images that we're not planning to use. So up to this point, we have been grabbing images from Pexels that we like, and we've been putting them in the images folder. However, there are a lot of images that we won't be using. So what we want to do from this point on, now that you guys are, further in, you know more, is I'm going to hide this folder for a second. So I already have my local root folder set up. Let me go ahead and make sure I put LRF. All right, so this was set up from the class that I did, the Zoom class. And so that Zoom class from last week is posted in Blackboard on the side. It says Zoom something, but the word Zoom is in it. All right, so last week I created a site during our Zoom session. And so in there, I have this ID underscore LRF because I'm continuing with my theme of Independence Day or the 4th of July that I started with. I'm going to continue with that throughout to teach you guys, your lessons. But anyway, so we have the ID4 folder underscore LRF, and then we have an images folder, and we have an index, and this template file is in here. I showed, again, in our Zoom session, I showed how to create a template file. And just to give you an example of really what that is it is really just a file that's set up each time for you with your main HTML for your header, your nav, side, article, section, and footer, so that you don't have to recreate this every time. So when you make a new page, you just open that one and in Dreamweaver and save it out as index.html or whatever page you need to save it as. And if you view the page source, this is really what it looks like. So it's really just a template for you to get started each time. I sometimes will start off with a template, but typically I type out all of my stuff. And again, that's because I have a different issue. For me, the issue is my memory. So I want to make sure that I'm always typing it so that I can always commit it to memory. But for you guys, if you work from a template, then that's going to help you. And pretty much all it is, like I said, is the head, the basic stuff, body. Then we have header, nav, main, aside, article, section, footer, body, and HTML. So this is pretty much just our base HTML. And then when you look at it, as you guys saw, this is what it looks like because it's the stuff in between the tags that is showing. So just like this says header, and that says nav, well, then that's this word right here that's in between the header tags. And this word right here is in between nav and main and so forth and so on. Okay. So that's what, let me move that out the way. That's what that is. So what I want to introduce you to this week is a resource folder. So I'm going to step into the ID4 LRF. And so inside of here right now, we have our images folder. I'm going to add a resources folder. And this one I'm going to do all caps. And the only reason I'm doing all caps is we know that all caps doesn't go on our website. So what happens is when we're ready, we would discard this folder or save this folder somewhere else so that what's going on the website is our light site. Okay. And then so that also means that this template.html file wouldn't go up on your website either. You would just have you would have really everything that has to do with your website. So you're also going to see what else is going to go in this resources folder. It's like the Photoshop file that we use to set up our, what our site's going to look like. So when we mock it up, that's going to be in here as well. And you don't want PSDs up there either, because the web only reads your images folders, like your JPEGs, your PNGs, your GIF files. It's only going to read those files. So those are the only files that you want up on your website. Okay. Every other file, it's not going to be able to read. The browsers can't read it. So in this folder, you would have your JPEGs, your PNGs, your GIF files, and things like that. But you would also only have the images that you're going to use. So since we're going into Photoshop, we're going to get really all of our image files, most of our image files from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of these images that we have, and I'm going to place them into the resources folder. Again, the purpose of this, so now the images folder is empty, because when I actually create all of my mock-up in Photoshop, when I export the images, those are the images that I'm going to put in here. Now, it means nothing to you right now, but I want to explain it so that it was explained to you, and then when we get to it, you'll be like, oh, okay, that's what she meant. Okay, so now my images folder is empty because all of them have gone into resources. I also have some more images that I want to put into resources that I don't know if I'm going to use in my site yet, but I'm thinking about it, right? So I have these images over here in my main images folder, and I'm going to throw them in resources. And this is just so that while I'm setting it up, I have them in one folder. Now, you don't have to do this. In fact, I could keep these over here, and I could just pull from these in Photoshop whenever I need them. As a matter of fact, if I wanted to, I could just take all of these. But what this does for me, the reason I have them in the resources folder is because then I know which images go with Independence Day, because this images folder right here has all images from everything. And it can be from, everything, so if it's photos about, MLK Day, or photos in reference to, my family and stuff like that, all of those reside here. So this kind of gave me a way to sort of categorize, which images I, want to use. Now, of course, I could have a folder in here that says Independence Day, and then I could have that in here as well. And I probably will, but whichever workflow works for you, then make sure that that's the workflow that you do. And I think the best route would be to work from within your main folder and just put these in a folder. So for instance, if I stayed in here and I just made a new folder and I called it independent, or I call it ID4, maybe photos or something like that. So now I know I have an Independence Day folder, and I'll grab those and put them in there. So that's really the best way to work. I'm going to work efficiently so I don't teach you bad habits, because the goal is for you to have good habits. All right. And then what I might do then, though, is take these folders that are over here that we had in our images folder and just add them to here. So now I have them categorized out. These are all my folders that have to do with Independence Day. Let me change the name of this only because Independence Day. Kind of think all the ways that I would search it. I would search Independence Day. I would search July 4. Okay, so there we go. So these are my Independence Day July 4 photos. These are also photos to go here. Okay, so now I have a folder separated with my Independence Day July 4 photos. And so that's where I would work. So now I have my resources over here, but inside of resources are going to be that Photoshop document that you will see pretty soon once we create it, and any images. So right now I don't have anything in images because what we're going to do is we're going to be starting in Photoshop. So again, all of our photos that we're going to use are going to be exported. And when we export them, we're going to export them into the images folder. So right now, my folder is clean. There's no images in there. There's index.html. There's the template.html, and there's this resource folder, but nothing's in there yet. Now, the next folder that we're going to add to this is going to be a CSS folder, and that's for our styles that we're going to create. So let's right click, new folder, and let's type CSS. Now, we could have actually created this folder inside of Dreamweaver when we get to it, but I want to show you what your folder structure should look like. So the new folders are resources and CSS. Resources because we're going to have other resources that we're using, like that Photoshop document. So when we go into Photoshop, we're going to be saving it into this folder. And this kind of keeps everything pretty much together. But what we will upload to our server would, once we get to that point, would not have the resources folder and would not have that temp.html. Now, that temp.html doesn't hurt to have it up there. It's not taking up any space, really. But if you were getting into good practice, you wouldn't have that. But that resources folder is the one that can hurt because it's going to have a PSD file, which is going to be much larger than your exported images and stuff like that. You don't want anything to slow down your website. All right. So that being said, this is the structure of your folder. So in the next video, we'll get into our CSS. But for now, this is all I want to show you. All right. So see you in the next video.